I consider myself quite lucky because I've worked in the social media for a football club, so that is negative, and actually the club that I was working with got relegated, so it was just negatives.
That negativity must be quite hard.
I'm trying to do a good job, and people just don't like it, and that can be a hard thing, I think. But in part, so I always try, wherever I go, I always try and have like a positive impact on people. And being told, like being in a situation where you're like, okay, well potentially like this isn't, you only get one time round, and I want to do everything I want to do, and I want to experience everything I want to experience.
What are some of the challenges you're finding in terms of social media?
It is, yeah. It feels like constantly. Sometimes you're turning the ship one way, and then like there's a massive block there, and they go, okay, we go this way, and everyone's like, what are you doing? Do you know what you're doing? I'm like, yeah, I do. It's just chaos.
I'm Sam.
And I'm Erin.
And this is Dorset Council's podcast, Invisible Impact.
Because the work we do may not always be visible, but the impact is anything but.
What's that?
Yep, good. Ready when you are.
Excellent. So, Ryan, you've been our social media manager for the last 9 months.
About that time, yeah. It's been about 9 months, yeah.
What does that involve?
So there's a variety of different things. A lot of it is kind of tracking and keeping an eye on what's going out. Is it working? Can we change it? Obviously, there's things that have to go out, and there's things that we could look at. Can we utilise a different platform and that sort of thing as well? So I think when I first came in, it was very much kind of like analyse and see what we're doing and can we change it, and then sort of slowly try and introduce certain changes or try and enhance certain things as well. So I suppose if I was to bring my day-to-day into it, it would be kind of have a look at what's scheduled for the day and what's scheduled ahead, keep an eye on anything that might be going out and any emergency comms as well, and trying to sort of find some ways of making that fun and engaging at certain times as well. Obviously, there's things that we have to do that are really serious, and conversation we have to have that are quite serious and stuff that goes up, but we do try to kind of like put every now and again like a little bit of a feel-good thing in and that sort of thing as well. So yeah, it's been a fun 9 months. I'm still learning. Like I have never worked in local authority before, so I've worked in civil service. So I used to work for the land registry, but I've never worked in this sort of level of social media. I've always kind of done agency stuff, which is a bit different because it's very much free reign a bit more. Whereas this, obviously, there's a lot more you've got to stick to in terms of like terminology and how you say things and how it goes out. So it's been a learning curve, but it's been fun, and I've enjoyed it so far.
With local authority, you know, what are some of the challenges you're finding in terms of social media?
Yeah, I think so. It's very much looking at the audience we're speaking to, but also who we are that are speaking to the audience. So like we've got to constantly remember that what we're saying and what's going out is being taken like sometimes to heart quite quickly, and there's certain topics have to go out which are quite touchy in certain areas, but we have to put them out there. And I think the biggest thing for me, and one of the learning curves that I've had, is actually allowing people a space to vent sometimes, and that's okay. And just letting them comment if they need to say something, let them have that space to say it. Ultimately, the topics that we deal with are close to home, so they're you're talking about housing and you're talking about very tense topics, especially in the current times, that can be difficult for people. So we have to be very understanding in how we put that across. That has probably been one of the hardest things I think to learn with it, and it's not so much sort of like trying to jump on all these sort of like trends and that sort of thing as well. Like that can happen, but that's kind of the back burner for us. The main part for us is always what needs to go out, how can we put it out, how we're going to reach the right audience and that sort of thing as well. And obviously as well, we're supporting services in the same time as well. So it's not just talking about what the council is what's going on in council and what's happening in cabinet and what this councillor said. It's looking at what are the services that we support, what are they doing, and how can we help them a little bit, and how can we utilise that and push that a bit more, and then balancing that as well, because you can't talk about one service too much and not talk about another service. So trying to find a balance in that too. So sometimes it feels like you're trying to pull things from different areas all the time, but it seems to kind of always work itself out by the time you get to Friday. So.
I mean, how do you? That negativity must be quite hard. I mean, people, keyboard warriors. When you're not in front of a person, it's quite easy to say things.
Especially if you kind of put your heart into producing some content or something, and then it can be quite demoralising if it gets pulled apart or.
Yeah, and I think that's something that I've spoken to the team quite a lot about, because it's not just me making the content. I try and encourage the team to kind of make the content, and then I'll help them. So I kind of said, I'm not here to do it, I'm here to help. So if you put a piece of content out, I'll help you shape it to do well. And that is one of the problems, is people will have a negative idea of it, and they'll put those comments out there. I consider myself quite lucky because I've worked in the social media for a football club, so that is negative, and actually the club that I was working with got relegated, so it was just negative. So I've kind of learned to switch off from it a little bit. But before, like, yeah, I had that 100%. I remember reading through posts, luckily not here, but at other jobs, and it's just like, and you're thinking, I'm trying to do a good job, and people just don't like it, and that can be a hard thing, I think. But it's just putting a kind of a barrier between you and who said it and who's replying to it. So they're not applying to you personally; they're applying to the council. And they think that is faceless, I think, sometimes as well. I say residents think that it's faceless sometimes, but there are people behind that, and I think that's one thing we've been trying to work on quite a bit, is actually having a human element to the content.
Yes.
to remind people, because actually people are less likely to say things like that when they know there's a human there. Not always 100%, but it has, from the stats, our negativity has gone down a bit. I'm hoping that is because we have put that human touch to the content.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I mean, with this whole podcast as well, that's sort of the thinking behind it, is that, we're calling it invisible impact because it almost is like sort of we're seen as those cogs that make things work, but there are people behind it with passion and,
Yeah, and I think that's the thing to remember as well is, especially with your authority, and when there's a vote, we don't change. The council changes. We're still all here, and we're still the people that are doing the jobs, and we're doing the same jobs that we were last time. And it's just implementing that, I suppose, and trying to remind people that actually, look, we're not the people that you're venting to. We're average workers that you see on the street, with the guy that you see in the pub, or the woman that you see at the cafe, or the gyms, or that sort of thing. That's who these people are, and they are working hard. And people say, that connotation of what do they do, but if you walk around the building, you see there's a lot of work going on, and there's a lot of people that are working really hard and working lots of hours and in different areas, and they are so passionate about what they do as well.
Absolutely.
And I think that's one thing that I've always felt quite lucky about, is because I've been able to go at different areas of the council, and I spent a lot of time with social housing and that sort of thing, and obviously that's been a real eye opener, because I've been able to see people that are in disadvantaged backgrounds that council have helped, and that's been interesting, because it just speaking to the councillors and the members of those teams, they're so passionate about that, and it's not that they don't care, they wish they could do more, but they're not able to. And I think that's one part that we want to get out a bit more in the content sometimes, is showcasing that it's not, they're not trying, they're working really hard, but they wish they could do more, but the tools sometimes aren't there to do more, which is the same in every job in the world sometimes. So
it is, you said about kind of like testing things that maybe to see if things work well, or looking at the analytics, which is similar to what kind of we do as well. Is there anything that surprised you that's worked well as a piece of content, or maybe surprised you that it hasn't done as well? Because that, I think, can be demoralising as well sometimes.
Yeah, and I think again that's one thing that's been interesting with the team again, because they're like, I've worked so hard and the video's not done well, or the post hasn't done well, and I'm like, that's sometimes just luck of the draw. So like you guys will know as well as anybody, like sometimes you can put so much effort to make a piece of content, you're like, this is going to be amazing, and then it gets 2 likes, and then sometimes you make a bit of content that you're like, just need to get out there, and it does really well.
It's always what happens.
Yeah.
It's like with our TikToks, it's always the things that we put the least effort into that do the best.
And that's the thing, and I think that's one thing we've been having a conversation about recently, and I was having a conversation with a team member last night. They were going through some stats for a recent launch that we'd advertised and done a lot of press for, and they were like, well, I've looking online, is there kind of like a blanket form in what is good and what's a bad post? And I said, well, it depends what you're asking to happen in the post. So like there's been times where actually we've been doing like a cost of living post, and we've wanted people to click on a link, and the post has not got many likes at all. But then when you look at the stats of the link clicks, it's got the most link clicks in the past like 4 or 5 weeks for any of the posts. So you're like, well, actually, engagement-wise, it hasn't done what we would have liked it to do, but we wanted people to click the link, and it's done that. So it's done the job, and I think that's been quite interesting, kind of learning and reminding myself of that as well, because everywhere I've worked has been engagement, and trying to build like a brand's, like basically their social presence. And that is all about followers and engagement and shareability and that sort of thing as well. But sometimes here it's about taking a step back and going, actually, it's not about the likes, it's about has someone clicked through to go onto the I don't know, the work for Dorset, or have they clicked through and have they gone on to this help site, and have they done what we wanted them to do? And if they have, then that's what we want them to do. But yeah, there's been certain pieces of content that I've gone, yeah, that's going to do really well, and it hasn't. And then there's been like the one that got me the most was the snow. So like the moment you take a video of a plough, and it could be a really dodgy video, but they're like, oh, it's a plough, and they like it, and everyone loves it. And we remember us saying that when it happened, we were like, it's really, really weird, because we've had no likes, and then we put a video of a plough up, and everyone was really excited about it. So
because it was right when people were interested in snow. It was just, I think it's because it's quite simple. It's just like people like the snow coming out of the way. Same with like the cliff falls and things.
Yeah,
just like watching stuff.
Yeah.
That's just the sort of thing that I think maybe because it's not trying to push anything on anyone.
Yeah,
people immediately like just could be anything.
And that's the thing, I think, and we've again, that pushing thing, we've spoken about it quite a bit. Sometimes it isn't about going, look what we've done and look what's happened. It's sometimes, like you say, it's looking and going, well, what do the residents actually want to hear? And I think it's as much about what goes on social as I think sometimes managing a relationship, in a sense, because you're managing the relationship with the residents. So if for example, when we brought out obviously the new council tax and everything, at that time you have to give people that breathing space to digest the council tax bills. So potentially we have to look at how we word things that go out, and you manage that relationship. So you go, right, is this the right time to be shouting about something that we've done, or is this the right time to talk about something else instead? And that can be quite interesting, looking at that and kind of trying to dive into when's the right time to say stuff and when's the right time not to say stuff, and where do we say it as well. But I think you are right. It's not so much sort of, you know, look what we've done, look what we are, look what we're doing. And sometimes it's just a case of putting a post out like that and just, we don't want anything from it, but here you are, here's a video of something, and it works.
Yeah, excellent.
Is there much kind of challenge or like part of your role being about helping people to understand the different social media? And because I know when we first started as well, there was that kind of cancel on TikTok, or what would we put on there, why would we put on there, that sort of thing. Do you find that's part of your role as well? Yeah,
I think it's 100%. That's a big thing, is understanding what goes where, and who people are talking to as well. Obviously that comes a lot from stats and looking at the audiences and who's following what, and it can be tricky, because again, going back to the passion of people, they want their stuff out, and they're like, oh, I've written this and I really want it out there, and you're like, well, maybe it's not suited for this platform, and that can be quite difficult. Well, how do we make it suit this platform? And I think really that's kind of like the next step that we're trying to move into now, is trying to really help people get their content in the right place at the right areas, and not sort of go, right, I'm going to just put this everywhere as it is. How do we go, right, this is a great write-up, what's the best way to share it? So we had it the other day. We went and we had a Haven Open, and we'd filmed the Haven Open, and we thought, right, the video go on the YouTube, but then we want to obviously share it, but we want the YouTube video to go and be seen more than anything else. So I said, right, let's put a picture post on Instagram about it, and then we'll share that onto the story, and then we'll put a link to the YouTube to see more. And it's just small little tactful turns like that, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and then you have to just kind of go, okay, fair enough, we'll do something different next time. But I always say to the guys, don't take it, again, going back to what we were speaking about earlier, don't take it personally if it doesn't work, just try something else next time. And that's the thing about social media. I think obviously you guys do a great job in what you do, is trying different ideas and having fun with it, because it should be fun. And I think that's the thing, like, if you work in social media and communications, you should be passionate about it, and it should be fun, and you should enjoy what you're doing. And sometimes you don't, of course, but the large part of it you should. And if you aren't, then maybe look at how can I make it more fun, because it is a fun industry, but it's what you do with it. You can sit there and just sort of plod along, or you can find fun and engaging ways to do things, and then it gets more exciting. Yeah. Do you find any difficulties with that? I guess local authority and fun aren't necessarily words that go together. Oxymoron. Yeah. I think it's I mean, like I said, there's very serious conversations and posts that have to go out. But yeah, there's when you the other day, like I said, we're down at a Haven, and when we were there, it was fun, and everyone was
Yeah.
having a chat and
Yeah.
talking about what they do, and it was sunny and it was a nice day, and there are fun parts to that. And I think, like you say, it is difficult trying to think, like, how am I going to put a TikTok out that's supposed to be fun and exciting about council tax going up? Like, you can't.
Yes.
It's not something
Yeah.
you can do. But then you find other things that you can do stuff in that is fun and exciting. But then again, you've got to manage that, and it's where do you do it, and when do you do it, and that's probably the hardest part of the job, I think, with it. It's sort of finding the fun in there, but then also knowing when to stop and knowing where the level is and how far we go with it, and that sort of thing as well. So
Absolutely.
You mentioned kind of the fun, but also that there is going to be days when it is harder. Is there anything that you kind of have or you do outside of work to kind of help you get through the tougher days?
Yeah, so I've got a 1-year-old son and my wife, so I usually have finish and we'll go play and that sort of thing as well. That's always quite nice to unwind. I coach football, and that helps me kind of unwind as well, takes me away from kind of the screen, and yeah, just kind of relaxing a bit. It's definitely something I've got better at with time. I didn't ever used to be good at switching off. I used to be on my phone constantly looking at new trends and that sort of thing as well, but I've got better at that with time, and using my work time to look for that instead when I've got free time to do it, as opposed to just being on my phone constantly at home. So I try and leave my phone upstairs or in a different room and just switch off completely. Obviously office door closed, that sort of thing, and just really kind of detach from it. So that's, switch off time probably is just unwind and get off socials, which can be difficult because when you work in something that you use anyway, like most people go, what do you use to unwind? We're like, I go and watch TikTok. You're like, well, I do that all day, so I'll find something else to do. So it can be difficult, but I think I've definitely got better at it as time's gone on. I think I've got to remind myself I've been doing it for like 5-6 years now, so I have got better as time's gone. But before I was awful at it. I used to get so stressed because I'd be looking constantly and you just do not switch off. I remember at one of my old jobs being on holiday, having an idea and sending it to my boss. My boss was like, "You're on holiday. Can you not send me stuff for work when you're on holiday?" And always telling me off, but that was needed because I didn't want to step away from it. But that probably comes from a place of passion as well, probably.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's it, isn't it? When you're doing something you love, if you're choosing to do outside of work, there's definitely the passion there.
Definitely.
I think having a child as well is always the really you suddenly realise actually I'm looking at my phone rather than, so it's quite a
and that's something I've got more conscious of, I think, since I've had him. It's like sitting there and when you're on your phone and when you're not, and I make sure that I'm really clear on that. So that's helped me a lot, I think, probably.
We asked you some questions beforehand as well, and you mentioned that as a teenager you had cancer twice. I mean, how has that impacted sort of the way you approach life and work at all?
Oh yeah, 100%. I think like it's been a massive catalyst for who I am and what I've done and what I've been able to do and what I've been lucky enough to do. And it sounds really weird, but I always say that I feel like lucky in a way that it happened, because it's and that sounds corny, but it has opened a lot of opportunities for me, and would be one of the reasons that I was able to kind of get into media and learn about that as well. Like I didn't go to university because it sort of happened during that kind of period, during school and stuff like that as well. So my school grades are awful, but I've kind of learned quite quickly, and I was able to kind of like hone in what I'm doing. And I started actually social media when I was ill. I got so bored of everybody messaging me going, how are you doing? That sort of thing. I thought, I'm just going to start a Facebook page and just update people like that instead. So I was just doing that all the time. And I was making videos and vlogs and that sort of thing. And then I sort of took that as I got better, and I went on and made an Instagram page, and it was kind of like focused on helping people that have come out of cancer and just talking about my life after cancer. And then I was able to do talks and work with charities, and I still kind of do charity events now. So me and my friend Harry, we do a lot of like physical challenges, and we've like done a 3 Peaks, London Marathon, cycled to Paris. We're trying to do the London Marathon again next year, but dressed as stem cells linked together. We thought that'd be quite fun, so we're thinking of doing that. And I think part of it is like we don't have to run as fast because we'll be dressed as stem cells, so if it's hot, it doesn't matter. It's been fun, but it has definitely shaped me in who I am and the way that I live my life too as well, because I'm kind of like, I'll do everything. And someone gives me an opportunity, I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. And sometimes that's to my detriment because I'll bite on more than I can chew. But I think that just comes from kind of being told, like being in a situation where you're like, okay, well potentially like this is you only get one time round, and I want to do everything I want to do, and I want to experience everything I want to experience, and it has had that effect on me, and I know that's probably annoying to some people as well, and I do say that. I say to people like, I'm probably like your worst enemy sometimes, because I'm like, well, why is your hunger not there as much as mine is? But yeah, it's shaped me to kind of be the person that I am, and to love certain things, and to just get excited about things, and like. My wife always says I'm like a Labrador, like I'm just like got this excitable energy all the time, like I want to do everything, like so it's made me a lot about who I am, and I feel lucky in a weird sense to have gone through it, because it has shaped me and it's helped me understand that, and it made me mature at a very young age as well, and I had to kind of like grow up really quickly, but it's opened my eyes to a lot of things and opened a lot of doors for me as well, and I can't say it hasn't, because it has, and I've been lucky to do things I wouldn't have been able to do without having cancer, which is weird to say, because you're like, I've been in rooms and I've managed to go into have an internship at certain places because of people that I've met and sort of ties that I've built from having cancer, which is odd, but yeah, it's a big part of my life and I can't ignore it, and actually, you know, I've learned a lot from it, and it has put me in a lot of places as well, and I've been able to develop social media skills and that sort of thing, just because people were asking me how I was doing. So it kind of all went back to that, really.
Yeah, excellent. Okay.
You also said one of your kind of lessons is around not burning bridges. Is there like an origin or a story behind that, of where that came from?
Wherever I go, I always try and have like a positive impact on people, and try and be as upbeat and positive as I can. And of course, some days I'm not. You know, I've got a 1-year-old. Sometimes I'm not slept, and I'm grumpy, and like that's fine. But I just try and stay at home that day. But yeah, I think that's it. It's something I've always tried to do, and I get really upset if I have upset people. And that's just like when someone doesn't like me as such, I'll always be like, I want to know why. And it's people are like, why can't you just accept the fact that, you know, that's fine? And I'm like, no, but I don't like the fact that I've upset somebody, or they don't like. I don't understand why, and I'd rather know why. So it's that's always kind of a part of my psyche, I think. But I think that's just something that's been instilled from me from my family. My family's very positive, and they're all very like positive people. Like even when I was ill, Mum would always say like PMA, which is like positive mental attitude, like all the time, positive mental attitude. And that's kind of been something I've kind of always had. And I think I was always, my old boss at the insurance company, Danny, he owned the company, and he always said that I was the most annoyingly positive person he'd ever met. So he was like, I love you so much, but you are like the person that on a Monday morning I don't want to have a coffee with, because you're just like, look excited and ready for the week. And he's like, I need to just have a coffee and just calm down a little bit. And I think I have probably calmed down a little more with that, just to get Labrador energy that is just what I am. And I think again comes with the creative stuff. When I'm excited about something, I'll grab it by the horns and just do it, and people are like, whoa, just slow down a little bit. And I'm getting better at slowing down, but again, leave positive impact, and if you can expel some of that energy onto other people, then I've seen it work wonders. So, and other people that I've been in rooms with that are like that, and it works. So I think it's always been part of my mindset.
That's so funny. I mean, when we saw sort of not burning bridges, I think automatically, was there an event that made you think regret?
We've burnt one.
I burnt a bridge. I can't go back.
It's that positivity, and I think, you know, as well, that you probably, you know, it's interesting you call it not burning bridges, but it's probably that, you know, putting that energy into those jobs as well and doing your best. That's the reason, and having those relationships to then feel comfortable going back as well.
I think that's the thing. And like, there's places where I have failed miserably, but then I've like managed to, you know, keep that bridge because of my attitude towards things. Like at school, I was my sixth form and everything. I was awful. I didn't do very well at all, but I kept that positive energy, and it was like still, even though I wasn't doing amazingly, my teachers were like, well, you know, we want to help him, we want to do that sort of thing as well, because it wasn't like I wasn't quitting, I wasn't going, I don't want to do it, but I was always that guy at school that when I had parents' evening, it was like, Ryan's a really good bloke to be around, but he talks too much. And it was like, that was basically every single parent evening. It was that. Parents like, I know, like, but it was never like, I was never really kind of like the naughty kid or told off with stuff. I was always just like happy and full of energy, and probably annoying.
Is that harder in a kind of big organisation like the council, because there's lots of kind of subcultures and people can get very passionate about different things that they want to get like done or changed? In
an agency this big, or an organisation this big, you have to put your foot down sometimes, and you have to say, I think this because of this, and then be okay with people saying, well, I don't agree, and then not doing what you want to do, and that's sometimes okay. And but you know, as I always think, as long as I put my point across and I've said what I think, I'll always do what is agreed. And you know, if we work on something collectively as a team, and I go, I don't agree with that, and they go, well, we're going to go on this path, I'm going to go, okay, that's fine. I've said what I want to say, but I'm still going to put my effort into doing what we've agreed as a team, whether I agree with it or not. But I think, that thick skin from being able to do that has helped me a lot. I think I probably would have struggled a bit more to kind of like find my space, but now I've kind of like found my space and I've got my box and I protect my box, and it's like, well, I'll give you my advice and I'll say what I think and I'll say it, you know, and then what happens. But whatever we decide as a team, I'll put 100% effort into it and we'll do it, and we'll do it as best we can.
Is there like that contrast between kind of if you're like the social media person and maybe, because I know a lot of the team is kind of communications based, something like press releases and things like that. Do you think that there's sometimes you kind of struggle to convince from the social media aspect that there's not an understanding?
I think sometimes it's difficult because, like I say, people are so passionate about what they've done, which is great, and I think that's really important. And they've put a press release together, and they really, really want it out, and that's great. And I always try to say, like, I'm not pushing back. I'm trying to figure out how we can make your piece of work hit the best, and how we can kind of get it into the right areas. And it might feel like sometimes I'm just kind of putting a block in, but I'm not. I'm trying to make sure that it's going to do and justify what you've done. It's going to really put like that mark on it, and you're going to be able to share it and be like proud of that piece of work. And I think that can be difficult sometimes, and you have, you know, pushback on things, and I think sometimes you've got to know when to kind of cut your loss and go, fair enough, we're going to do it. But sometimes I will really push back, and I think I'm getting better as it goes. Like my manager Paul, he always says, don't reinvent the wheel, you know, just, you know, look at it and think how he can help. And then sometimes it's about baby steps, sometimes it's about you know, really trying to push back big time. But I think it can be difficult because people have got so many skills in so many different areas, and they're so good at what they do. I couldn't write a press release, but I know how to get the press release into the right area. And we're getting better at that as a team. I think
that is the thing with social media that maybe you don't have with the traditional comms. Is I would say the traditional comms is still very much the same. Like news hasn't really changed, like newspapers and things like that. Other than kind of websites now, whereas social media is constantly like, oh, it was all about like this length of video. Now it's this length of video, and you got to make sure you have this and this, or like to get onto these trends. And I mean, daily it probably changes in terms of what's popular, but also in terms of like, it's social media is constant. Like, it is about being adaptable, like you said.
And I think you're right in that as well, like you say, because that's a hard part of it as well. Because I'll be telling people to do something, and then, like you say, it changes, and they're like, "Hang on a minute, 6 months ago you're saying do this, now you're saying do that," which is the opposite of what you just told me to do. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but it's changed, and it's because the platform wants you to do something completely different. So like we were talking about the other day, as a team, we were talking about like the amount of times that you post. And like the use of hashtags and that sort of thing as well. And like obviously back in the day they were a huge thing. Like hashtags were massive. And now they're not as big as they were because they're using keywords and SEO and that sort of thing as well within the app. And then like the use of like your content and how good your content is. We've gone from a space within 3 years of people wanting authentic content that doesn't feel too polished, and now people really wanting polished content that looks good because of what's appearing within the app. But then it's finding the right balance between that. So where do we stop, and where's the line in that? And it feels like constantly sometimes you're turning the ship one way, and then like there's a massive block there, and they go, okay, we go this way, and everyone's like, what are you doing? Do you know what you're doing? I'm like, yeah, I do. It's just chaos. And I'm just trying to put it all together in like this chaotic world and help as best you can. But like you say, it is constantly moving. You have to be adaptable, and you have to be okay with the fact that what you did last year won't work this year in certain areas, and change it and build it, and that's hard.
Hashtags are the perfect example of that, I think, because I would say from all the things I read are pretty much dead on most platforms now. Like you almost cringe to put hashtags. It makes you seem like you don't know what you're doing now. Because it's like you're right, it all just comes from keywords, or if it's like mainly video content, whereas when we first started, we were doing lots of graphics. Because that was kind of what was doing well on like LinkedIn and platforms. And now it's all like shorts, reels, longer videos. Like if you're not doing video content, you're not really going to get much engagement.
And I think that's one of the interesting things about it, isn't it? It's like and a couple, like, you think when Instagram were pushing carousels and they wanted you to do more carousel posts, and then now they're like, well, you need to try and build a relationship with the audience, and like this is something we're looking at trying to do at the moment, is trying to build a relationship with like the audience and the councillors, and try and put that together and bridge that through long form content and short form content, and how do we showcase and make these people relatable to the residents, because I think that's a really important part of it as well. But yeah, and then I know that when we start doing that in November, December, whenever, they'll be like, oh no, get rid of long form content, we can do something else now. Or it's just audio now. Like it's you have to be adaptable to it, and I think especially when you work in a big organisation like this, it takes a while to get things off the ground, but it's trying to work it quick, because you're like, well, actually that's happening now, so we have to get on it now, because if we're going to take 6 months to get it off the ground, we're going to have to change the entire plan, because in 6 months' time it's going to be completely different.
I remember when I first kind of started watching YouTube, and it became like more and more popular when it was kind of first in its infancy. It was like 1 to 2 minute videos were like the peak. Like people would do like little sketches or little vlogs and things for like 1 or 2 minutes. And now there's sort of like a no man's land in the middle, where it's like up to 1 minute or kind of 2 minutes short videos. Anything above half an hour is like a long YouTube video, like a video essay up to like hours and things like that. There's nothing really, that middle ground, like you shouldn't be making anything in that middle ground really, because no one watches. I don't know why no one watches like 10 to half an hour, that middle. Yeah, it's either short or it's super long. Yeah, like no middle ground.
Yeah, people are either on there for they want to watch loads of quick videos, or they're going to sit there.
Or you
want to
watch like a full like break. Like I've seen video essays on movies that people have done that, like I haven't watched them, but they're like 4, 5, 6 hours. Yeah, and those are very popular videos.
Well, this is a thing, isn't it? So one of my passions outside of it, apart from football, is I love like documentaries, and I love looking at how documentaries are made. And I'm going up to Sheffield DocFest this year, and I looked at I was like, oh, I'll have a little look at the previous years and what's been put in there, and it's like 1.5 minutes. I'm like, documentary? But they're like, yeah, that's part of it, and it's like you got that, and then you've got like an hour, and it's like there's nothing like a 15-minute documentary. It's like you've got a minute and a half or 2 minutes, and you've got like an hour documentary. And I'm like, wow. Like, these are people that are lodging work to be looked at by experts and potentially bought and commissioned by big companies, and they're making a 2-minute documentary somehow, and they're fascinating. There's not really much to it, and there's not a lot of audio in it, but you watch it and you're like, wow, I've actually learned quite a bit from that. But
it's such a skill. Like, how can you tell a story like that in 2 minutes?
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's a skill, isn't it? It goes back to that skill aspect of it. And then utilising what people are good at, and where their skills are in those areas, I think, isn't it? So, yeah, it is interesting, and it's hard showing people that it changes all the time, and what I'm telling you to do now isn't going to work next year, and then get people to jump on the trends early, which is hard, because you're trying to teach people whilst they're trying to do what and stay on. It's kind of pulling, like I said earlier, pulling things out of the sky sometimes, and trying to sort of bring it all together. And that's sometimes as well where you go, right, that's an update, but let's not worry about that. Let's not worry about that one. Let's focus on that one for the time being, and like trying to pick so as well, choosing your battles in a way, and choosing what we focus on and where we educate and learn and teach.
And I'm sure once you get to a team meeting and you're like, this is what's trending on TikTok right now, it would already be dead.
Oh yeah, by the end of the meeting, it's running out.
Yeah, because you have to wait for the next meeting.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, people have moved on to something else.
Yeah, it's another one now. Yeah, what about that idea? Well, that's gone. Yeah, don't worry about it. Yeah.
So right, there's a question that we ask everybody. What is your impact on Dorset Council?
I would say, not personally, because it's not always me, but I think as a communications and social media team, it's getting the message out there. And actually, I always say to people, we are a huge part of the overall consensus of what people think about the council, and that's why we have to take so much pride in what we do. And we have to really take that seriously as well. So I'd say that the impact that not just myself, I help people have this impact on what the council looks like to the residents of Dorset, and how we go about changing that opinions sometimes, and actually showcasing the great work that goes on in this building, because we're not blind to the fact of what people sometimes think about the council across the country, and all various councils, but it's about how can we change that opinion sometimes and actually showcase the fantastic things that go on in this building and the other offices around the county as well, because there's so much that goes on. So yeah, I'd say impact is showing and changing perception.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's a great point to end, I think.
Fab.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
No, thank you.